What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out the premiere episode of the Among the Ashes podcast. We're your hosts, Wes and Chris. On tonight's episode, we're hanging out with a good friend of mine, Jonathan Baskins. He shares about his life growing up in sports, the church, and how he had his first taste of alcohol at the age of 13, and how that led to a long road of destruction and chaos, and his ultimate rock bottom where he found Jesus and his sobriety. He shares how every day he works to maintain his sobriety and his sanity by loving people the way he wants to be loved, and how he tries to meet them where they are in life. He shares how God opened a door for him to be a part of a church plant, which ironically enough is in a bar of all places, and they call it the garbage can. He says it's a place where you can bring your trash and leave it all behind. Get ready for a story of destruction and beauty. This is Show Up, Shut Up, and Love Somebody with Jonathan Baskins. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Among the Ashes podcast tonight. We're your hosts, Wes and Chris. Chris, how you doing, man?
Doing good. How you doing, Wes?
Doing good, man. A little tired. Long day recording yesterday. A lot of storms.
Yeah, that was kind of sketchy.
So no issues at your house.
No issues.
Just a limb and a panicked wife.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, some people would say a panicked wife would be an issue, so.
Well.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, Alicia's a little high maintenance. Yeah. A little high stress. Not high maintenance, a little high stress.
Try to keep them from panicking.
Yeah, that's right. Well, tonight on the show, we got Jonathan Baskins. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Living life?
Rocking along.
Raising chickens?
Raising chickens.
Yeah, I see your posts on Facebook about your chickens. That's funny, man. You know you're officially old when you have chickens.
Man, my dad started me doing that when I was a teenager. Or a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to the city for a while, got back out in the country, and that's the first thing I wanted.
Wanted some chickens? You know, man, I grew up on a farm, and I hated every minute of it. My stepdad, it didn't matter. If you had, either one of you guys had stayed the night at my house on Friday night, you were working cows Saturday. That's just the way it went. So nobody ever stayed the night at my house.
I get it.
So and I hated it, but now as an adult, it's like I do that for a living every day. It's way better than punching a clock. You know, just the freedom of, the sunshine and the weather. So anyway, we can go there. So Jonathan's officially old with chickens. Chris has got 8 puppies now. So anybody in YouTube land want a puppy?
Yeah, they're Goldadors if anybody's interested.
Chris is making up names now.
We might need to talk. My wife's, for some reason, she's on a puppy kick.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For the last 6 years, it's like, no way. Not even a chance. But how big do they get?
Oh, they're about 60 pounds.
Oh, yeah. That might be too big for inside.
Yeah, they're pretty, well, we keep ours inside, and so we had her in her outside kennel, and the neighbor's dog got into the kennel, so she got pregnant, and so they're 2 days old right now.
Oh.
Yeah, they're little bitty puppies.
So at the same time his dog was going in heat or whatever, our dog went in heat. We got her in January of this year, and I was like that. It's like, I don't want another dog. It's not that I'm not an animal person. Like, I like animals, but I've just never cared about having an animal. An animal makes money for you or works for you. That's the way I was brought up, So the kids have wanted the dog. We had a boxer years ago when my oldest was little, and she ran off and don't know what happened to her. And from then on, we just haven't had another one. It's like, I don't want to feed nothing else. I don't want to take care of nothing else, clean up after it. So anyway, so Candace sees this dog for adoption, and it's a French bulldog. And I've always told them I want to have a boxer or a Frenchie. Well, boxers are too big and Frenchies cost too much. Well, lo and behold, this one they wanted, hey, you can come get it, adopted. She's full-blooded, no papers. So I told Candace, I said, I'm not feeding her. I'm not walking her. I'm not cleaning up after her. I'm not petting her. That is the kid's dog. We get home, man, and she plays with the kids about 10 minutes and sat in my lap in the last 6 months. That's where she sat. Like, if I go somewhere, she goes. And the kids are always like, she loves you. And I was like, I can't help it. It's not anything I did. You know what I mean? Like, but I can 100% say that dog has changed my life, like for the better. Like, I struggle with depression pretty bad. And like, I've been happier. Not that I shouldn't be happy. Like, I have a great life, but like, that dog has brought me a lot of happiness. It's kind of crazy. A lot of frustration too, but.
Yeah, that comes with it.
Yeah. So
I've always loved animals, but Mallory, she's allergic to a lot of stuff, and then she also doesn't like any kind of dirt in the house.
Yeah.
She's obsessed with the floors.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good thing for you. You know what I mean? Your house is always clean. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, but you probably have to get those little slip covers for your shoes when you walk in. You know what I'm talking about?
looking
Just
like
about.
a doctor.
I got to
Yeah.
take them off at the door.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, happy wife, happy life. That's what they say. So,
Yeah, but
you know.
whatever it takes.
All right. Well, man, let's get into it. We're gonna listen to you rap a little bit about your life, man. Tell us about Jonathan.
Well, I don't know if I was a normal little kid, but I guess I was perceived as normal. I did all the normal things, that kids do. Probably my earliest memory is we lived in New Orleans for a little while after my brother was born. Well, we lived in New Orleans. My brother was born in New Orleans, and then my parents came back to Birmingham and had me at Cooper Green.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That ought to tell you
Yeah,
something.
you were destined, right? Destined for greatness there, Cooper Green.
I'm a Cooper Green baby.
If nobody out there knows what Cooper Green is, you're better off. You're better off.
But so having to come from New Orleans to Birmingham to Cooper Green to have me, I don't know. That must have been a pretty tough. But
well, if New Orleans didn't have a hospital and the Cooper Green was our only choice, it was there was something tragic going on there.
I'm not sure. I haven't asked any questions of why, but I just
well, you've
know.
made it this far,
Yeah.
so I mean, obviously you're doing okay so far. So
Yeah, but so I just remember my dad getting me started in baseball really early. Well, my brother started playing when he was 5, and if I wanted to play, I had to play on his team. And so I was 4 when I started playing. Never saw a tee
right,
till I got in high school, but baseball was my passion, and then just being outside. I hated being inside when I was little, so we spent a lot of time outdoors playing in the dirt, catching anything that moved.
right.
And my brother was my best friend, and that's something, not everybody gets to experience.
Sure.
Which I was fortunate to have that, and just pretty normal through. I had a lot of friends playing ball, doing things normal kids do. Now we grew up in a little small trailer, and it was always packed because my parents had 4 kids while we were there, and are living there, and then my cousin moved in with us when his mom passed away. She was in a car accident.
Yeah.
We were probably about 11 or 12 at that point.
It's a pretty full house, a lot like us here. Like we have 4 kids, and there's always somebody here. If it's not somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend, there's a friend staying the night. Something.
But you just imagine
a
a 3-bedroom mobile home,
right,
single wide, with 7 or 8 people in it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, my ultimate goal every day was to get outside, get out of the house. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be inside.
Right. Too much noise, too much. Yeah.
Just chaotic.
Yeah.
And my parents were just doing the best they could, but and we managed that. It was all good. My life changed a whole lot. Basically, when I hit puberty, probably 12 or 13 years old, and I was playing community ball at corner, and I decided I wanted to transfer over to Warrior and start playing at Warrior Ballpark. I had made some friends there, and I met one of my new teammates and made friends with him, and I started going to his house and hanging out. And his daddy kept beer in the fridge, and he would drink it. Well, I got interested, and I started trying to drink it.
Your buddy would drink it.
Yeah. He would drink a couple beers, sneak a couple or whatever, and eventually I got interested in it. I think it was the summer I was 13 that summer.
So at 13, that's where your journey had really began.
Yeah, it just started, really spinning at that point. But I tried to drink beer and I hated it. But then he had a lot of older friends. I mean, at 13, he had 18, 19-year-old friends.
Yeah. That's not good.
I got introduced to some of those guys.
Sure.
And I remember we had a big party one night out in the woods and had a big fire. And I got introduced to vodka. And very first time I drank, I blacked out and found myself in a hayloft the next morning.
Oh wow, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. I don't know how I got up there to this day.
Well, it's kind of like me, like telling on myself a little bit. The first time I ever drank alcohol, I believe I was 15, 16, and I was at one of my best friend's house, and his mom was always like, "Hey, y'all can drink as long as you're here." And in my mind, like, yeah, she's doing us. I mean, she knows teenage boys. She's trying to do the best she could. She was a single mom, and she's trying to protect us and keep us from drinking and driving. But really, it did us a disservice. Really, you know what I mean. But I was the same way. My buddy filled up a half a bottle of Mountain Dew full of vodka, and I'm on the phone talking to some girl. I don't remember who it was now. And I noticed he had said, "Hey man, I'm gonna go take a leak." He goes outside, and I'm talking to her, and like he's been gone forever. Well, I stand up and just face plant, you know, and I remember stumbling outside, and he's just laid over the banister, just passed out, and it's like we're 15 years old, you know what I mean? It's like we for sure shouldn't have been doing that. And luckily for me, like it never got crazy for me. Like I would drink here and there. I was always scared of getting caught or scared of something happening. But for my buddy, he fought a pretty hard battle with alcohol in his life, and I'm not saying it's his mom's fault; it's his choices. But I often wonder. I saw a post the other day on Facebook, and some mother was saying her 19-year-old daughter's coming home from college and wanted to know if she would buy her the alcohol she wanted, and the father was like, "Absolutely not," and the mom's like, "I need some advice here. What should I do? Should I?" Bond with my daughter, or should I listen to my husband? I'm like, listen to your freaking husband is what you need to do. Number one, if she wants to drink, she can, what she does when she's not at home, you can't control, but you're not her friend, you're her parent. And so it just kind of blows my mind that parents even do that. And it took me back down to my buddy thinking about his mom and like I said, she was always put your keys in this bowl and she would take them to the bedroom and we would hang outside and drink or whatever. But it's like, that really was a dumb move on her part. I told my mom that story a few years back. She's like, "What's her number?" My mom was mad. She was livid. But, people do their dirt, but it can definitely lead down some crazy road. I guess it would either turn you completely away from it because you get sick and don't like the way it feels, or push you harder into it, and at a young age with your brain not being developed and you really shouldn't be making any kind of adult decisions at that point. It can spiral you out of control.
Yeah. That was an interesting night. I don't remember much about it, but I just remember at one point some of the older guys wanted to go buy some drugs, and I rode with them, and we end up at this house. I was already tore up, and they were all in there doing crank, which I didn't get involved in it.
Sure.
I'm not sure if they would have pressured me if I would have, but I was kind of like, man, I'm already drunk. This is my first time to feel like this.
Right.
And, but I remember I puked in this guy's front floorboard and it pissed him off. So he put me out on the side of Warrior Jasper Road. And I'm hugging a tree, trying to hide, thinking I'm hiding from whoever's driving by. They ended up coming back and getting me, but
yeah, it's a scary.
So, and I went back and kept drinking some more, and they had to almost pull me out of the fire one time because I'd rolled over.
Wow.
And then that's probably the last. I went from vodka and started drinking Milwaukee's Best.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it went from bad to worse.
Me and Milwaukee's Best had a relationship for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of how that all went down. And like I said, I ended up in the hayloft. I don't know how I got there, and we had to stay at the ballpark all day the next day. Massive hangover.
Yeah. Dehydrated.
I'm a kid full of energy, man. Just wide open, and I'm at the ballpark sitting on the bleachers like I'm about to die.
Yeah.
And I know his mom's got to be wondering what's wrong with
What's
this
wrong?
kid.
What's going
She
on?
never. I don't remember her ever asking me. I don't
Yeah.
ever remember even getting questioned about that knot. But it was quite this interesting event.
So how many years did it take you to learn that that wasn't for you?
About 30.
Yeah. About 30 years to get that figured out. So
Yeah,
kids,
I mean,
kids, if you're listening, pay attention here.
look, if you drink and black out, if you go through an event like that, you're probably an alcoholic.
Right. You've got the gene. At very least, you've got the gene.
Nobody. I didn't have anybody to tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that put me for a loop for a while. I probably didn't drink or do any drugs for about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when I turned 15, I started getting wild
Yeah.
again.
Just dabbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you played baseball in high school, right?
yeah.
And you played for Corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Golly, it's forever ago, but like I remember you playing ball, and we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
solid ball player.
I was a good athlete.
Yeah.
I was gifted.
Yeah.
And like I said, my dad started teaching me how to play baseball when I was 4. And I was definitely good. I had some colleges looking at me for baseball. And I think I remember throwing my arm out against Hueytown my senior year, and then I just quit playing.
Just done.
Yeah, I was just pissed off at the world.
Yeah.
But I played basketball too. That was
Yeah, I remember that.
that became probably my favorite sport. And I was naturally good at it, but I didn't have a really high basketball IQ.
Mm-hmm.
I started getting better as I got into my 20s,
Yeah.
but I didn't start playing until I was in 8th grade. And, Corner wasn't known for a great basketball
Well, but they
program.
had some pretty good athletes in those days. Though.
Yeah,
I mean, you had the Allenses and
Yeah, Allums came up behind me, Hollis.
Yep.
And then I even went back and helped coach. And when Corner had their best record ever at 29-5, I was helping Billy and Tingle and Ron Tingle and Michael Rice.
Yeah, Michael Rice.
And then
Yeah.
Ducksworth. There was
There
really
were some studs on those
they
teams
were, and
over
they
the years,
had they had high IQs.
Yeah.
Easy to teach, easy to coach.
Yeah. But you're also talking about kids that have been playing basketball for years. I
Yeah.
mean, their entire life. I mean,
Maybe.
I know Tingle's dad, my cousin Cameron Mitchell, George Mitchell, they played ball together at Corner.
Yeah.
So they kind of just brought them on. Of course, it didn't help that they're all 6'4" plus, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And then Mike Rice, just a freak. I mean, just a phenomenal basketball player. He actually coached Catherine. He's got a couple of girls right around Catherine's age, and he's been Catherine's coach several years. And it's amazing just watching him take girls that are under 10 and developing them. Like, I mean, the kid's special. I mean, I don't know his story, what happened, I don't know if he was ever looked at or anything like that, but there was some talent in those days, the late 90s and early 2000s for sure.
Yeah, I think Michael might have been more focused on academics.
Maybe, and he was smart. He's super
him
smart.
and Tingle both.
Yeah, both of them really
They
smart.
could have played somewhere. But,
Yeah,
that wasn't their focus.
yeah. Ryan's boy his name's Will. He's right around Keegan's age. He's pretty good ball player as well. I think he plays baseball too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, some good athletes coming through. And then of course, Coach, you had, was it Billy there? Billy Connor then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I started.
I mean, he was a good coach.
Hey, I played, of course, junior high. I played under Coach Galeaton.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
He was a football coach for a while, and then Coach Pike helped a lot.
yeah. I know at one time Coach Connor had the most wins in Jefferson County. I believe it was,
Possibly.
as far as basketball. And then he just retired. I think it was last year, and then he's coaching at Bevel now. Maybe?
Yeah, he's at Bell.
But just a basketball guru for sure.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, yeah. So never played college ball. What'd you do after high school?
I went to work.
Went to work.
Yeah, I started. Well, I worked when I was a kid, trying to make money, but after school. I did go to Bell State for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
but I just got sick of it, tired of school.
Yeah.
And I think right after I got out of school, I was still in school, and I was working for, you remember the BP right across from Wesley's?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working for them.
Yeah.
Stocking shelves and pumping gas and all that, whatever they do.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a little while, and then I went to work for Cracker Barrel in '96. Worked there for about 6 years, 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And so then I started working went to work at a hotel, became the bell captain there, and that's probably my favorite job I've ever had. But and I did pretty well doing it, especially seeing celebrities and things like that. People getting a lot of really, really good tips and stuff. But I got married and wanted to make more money, so I started trying to sell cars.
Mm-hmm. Which is how we connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did really well when I first started, and then I got introduced to crystal meth, and of course, I remember the first time I was friends with another salesman, and we went out on a ride. He said, "Here, I want you to try this," and I did, and I sold 2 cars that day.
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta keep doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, man, because we worked at the Dodge dealership together, and I didn't really realize how many people there were actually on drugs, and there was one guy that worked with us. I'm not going to say his name. I'll tell you after we're done, but he would just go on binges and go missing. And they would always find him in a hotel laid up with some woman, Well, it ended up happening one time, and they're looking for him for 3 or 4 days, and sure enough, he was in the hotel, but he was dead. He had overdosed.
Oh, I know who
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And there's several of those guys that were real close.
That was after I worked there.
Yeah, you were gone. But you would have thought that it would. And when I say guys, I mean these guys are in their probably 50s, late 40s at least. Well, they looked it anyway. They may not have been. I mean, they had some hard living, but you would think that it would have straightened some of those guys up. But it didn't. They just all continued to do what they were doing. And I didn't know it at the time, but they would take the cars and they would go see their dealers or whatever else, or sell or meet people and sell dope, whatever, they're in the company cars. And so it's pretty crazy. The car industry is it's a unique beast. Like, it's feast or famine. Number one, you either do really well or you struggle. And a lot of those guys that end up doing really well end up with some sort of vice. If it's not alcohol or drugs, it's gambling or women or something, because they're making stupid money,
Yeah.
I know guys in the car business that make 10 grand in a week.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like, holy crap,
That's brutal.
Yeah. And it's hard to stay on focus, I guess, when you got a pocket full of money, especially when you're 20 something, making more money than you've ever made in your life. You know what I mean? If you're not married and don't have a family, what are you going to do? Unfortunately, a lot of people choose that path. So let's back up a little bit. 13, your hayloft incident. Any more stories like that as a teenager? Anything that really would have pointed you to,
Oh,
hey,
man.
this is leading me to trouble?
Well, my brother, he was my ride or die. And when I was 15, I wasn't using, but I was just wild as hell. And my brother was dating this girl. We had been to Florida the previous summer, down to Panama City, and we had met a bunch of girls from Pleasant Grove.
Which, by the way, Panama City in the 90s. It ain't Panama City today. Panama City was not family friendly in the 90s, at least not during spring break or the first few weeks of summer.
Yeah.
So, anyway, go ahead.
But he met a girl. They started talking, and there was something going on with some other guys in Pleasant Grove, and it pissed him off. And he's like, "Let's go fight these guys." And I was like, "Okay." Yeah, whatever, man. I got your back.
Yeah.
And of course, I was 15, but I was driving. We had my dad had a big long Chevy Caprice,
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, 15, driving that Caprice. My brother's in the passenger side, and we drive out to Pleasant Grove. Well, before we go, we recruited a couple of friends, and they ended up backing out, leaving us hanging. But one of them said, "Hey, I can get my dad's pistol," and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And so I was like, "Bring it on!" And so he got it. We took it, put it in the glove box, and at some point, my brother was driving, and these dudes cornered us in at a stop sign. Well, I grabbed the pistol, and I've got the pistol. My brother's saying, "This dude's coming up to the car. He doesn't realize I've got a gun." My brother's yelling at me to shoot him, and I'm just like, I don't know what I need to do at this point.
Yeah.
But instead of shooting at him or anything, I just leaned back in the car and kicked him in the face. And then I picked the gun up and stuck it out, and that they all scattered. And my brother was driving. He rammed the vehicle in front, pushed it through the stop sign, hung a right, and ran down through this lady's yard, knocked over one of her trees. Now we've got half the neighborhood over there.
Yeah.
And there's some dads and stuff questioning us, asking us about where's the gun. I said, I don't have a gun. We got a baseball bat, but the gun was up back in the glove box. I was denying it. And I was just like, "Hey, Jeremy," that's my brother. I said, "Hey, get in the car. We got to go." I pull out of there and I take off, and I couldn't count the cops passing us. And we went out behind the Piggly Wiggly there in Pleasant Grove, and I tossed the gun out in the woods and drove home. As soon as I got home, my mom and dad, "Y'all need to get in the car. We got to go back to Pleasant Grove." I was like, "For what?" "Police want to talk to you." So I'm getting interrogated by Pleasant Grove police at 15 years old for brandishing a weapon, tearing up a lady's yard. I mean, whatever, just being hoodlums. And I denied the whole thing. I denied having anything or whatever. I was just kept my lips shut. But
Well, my cousin taught me at a young age. He said, "Wesley, this is something to live by. 3 words: deny, deny, deny.
yeah,
You never admit to anything."
yeah. That's and I that's the way I lived for a long time.
Wow.
But I ended up taking them to show them where the gun was. My brother told them we had a gun and we had stashed it. So I got to ride in the cop car that night, but at least I got to go home.
Yeah.
And so that was probably one of the crazier things that had happened, as a teenager.
Yeah.
And then after that, man, I was drinking before games, drinking on the weekends, drinking on the bus after the games, just really getting toasted a lot.
Just leading you down a road that you didn't realize you were going down. But
yeah, and it was mostly alcohol that had me for a while until I got introduced to some other stuff.
Yeah.
Probably I was out of school before I really got into any hard drugs or anything like that.
Yeah. So fast forward, you're working now. You're out of school. You're working. Clearly, you're still drinking at this point in your life.
On and off.
On and off.
Yeah.
I know. There's been several times in your life where you've gone sober and then fell back for whatever reason. Just go from there, man. Let's pick up from you working at the hotel. You were talking about making money there. Just your life around that time into the car business. Just moving on forward.
The hotel, it was probably in the early 2000s when I first started day drinking. And I'd been at the hotel a while, but I started during lunch or whatever, I'd grab a couple beers, and then it turned into eventually I was doing it in the mornings. But I guess I'm trying to think how that. Some of the years are really fuzzy.
Sure.
I don't. I've got. I think I've got some permanent brain damage. But so I was dating Natalie at the time, and we had been together in high school and then after high school. But we got married. I was still working at the hotel when we got married, and that's when I decided I wanted to make more money, and I got into the car business, and I quit drinking, and I was sober when I first started, and doing well. When I'm sober, I do well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, alcohol changes me completely, turns me into an evil person.
Mm-hmm.
But when we first got married, I would drink about a couple beers at night. Had this one beer that I liked. I liked the flavor of it, and I wasn't trying to get drunk. I was just drinking a couple at night. But that spiraled because I would drink a couple, and then I'd make an excuse, and I would go out like I had need to go to the store for something. I'd go out and have more beers,
Mm-hmm.
and it just snowballed from there. Ended up getting hooked on meth for a little while, and my dealer was one of my childhood friends, and that's probably the main reason I was dealing with him, because I thought, well, he'll do me right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he started screwing me over, and so the meth was it was drying up. I didn't know where else to go, and I had another friend in Birmingham that was a drug dealer, and he was able to get me some coke, and I started doing that, and I did that for probably 8 or 10 months. Lost everything. My wife left. I had a baby. Had a baby boy. My wife left me. We tried to make it work. I got off the cocaine, sobered up a little bit, and that's when I came to work at
The dog
in Jasper.
Yeah.
And so, but then I started drinking again. I mean, I guess I was full blown by the time I was 26.
Just fully into alcohol and whatever you could get, drugs, whatever.
Anything that was anything that, when I was using some harder drugs when I was like 19,
Mm-hmm.
Ecstasy and Xanax and stuff like that.
Do you feel like your alcoholism and your drug abuse, do you feel like that stemmed from anything, like from childhood or any kind of trauma, or you just luck of the draw, you tried something and it?
It's hard to say. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff, but before I was 13, my parents fought, and it was chaos in the house, but I don't think that was enough to
just trigger you to do
drive
it.
me over the edge or anything.
Yeah.
I think I just got curious.
Yeah.
And once I got a taste for it, it changed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just liked the way it felt.
Yeah.
But then eventually, there were traumatic situations that happened. Like I said, when I was 13, until the first time I got drunk, I was probably 15 or 16 before I drank again.
Yeah.
That's right after my parents divorced. And it was a really hard time, not having my dad around.
So do you think that maybe had you not experienced that up until that point and your parents splitting up, do you think you would have went down that road?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
You know, I'm not trying to make excuses for alcoholism and drug abuse, but I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to and experienced in life. They either have some sort of traumatic event that triggered them, or I just like the way it made me feel. You know,
Yeah.
I've got a close person to me that had an accident whenever he was young, and he just liked the way the pills made him feel. And
Yeah.
from there on, he spiraled out of control for several years. And thank God he's doing great now. But he made the statement to me one time. He said, do you think I want to be this way? You think this is a choice? It's not. I don't want to be the way I am, but it's just like that monster just takes over. Like if it's not, withdrawing and DTs, it's fighting the battle of your mind of going through something stressful, or you just like the way it feels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
not always escape, but
yeah, it turned into escape for me.
yeah,
I like to have fun, and I still
yeah,
am. I want to have fun if I'm doing something.
yeah,
And anything that could enhance that, I was all for it.
yeah.
And that would make the party better.
Yeah. Well, I remember days in the car business. Like, I mean, we would just laugh. I mean, we had a good time
Yeah.
when you were there. I mean, for sure. And you may have been sober, you may not have been. I don't know, but we had
Probably-
a good.
probably
Probably weren't.
I know I wasn't at a certain point.
Yeah.
I may have been the day I started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just remember. I can remember days like we would just laugh about nothing. You know what I mean? We just had a good time when you were there. You know what I mean? So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's kind of been who I am, and I've lost a lot of that
Yeah.
because of substance abuse
Mhm.
and that leading into depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And just massive amounts of destruction that I've left in my past that I have to clean up, But
Yeah.
so I'm still at heart, I still want to have a good time, but I'm still trying to find that balance too.
Yeah. Well, it's like Mike Tyson. He talks about how he's not the person that he was when he was the heavyweight champ. He said, I put that man away, and I'm scared to let him out. Now, when he fights this Paul kid, I hope he lets it out.
I do
You know
too.
what I mean? I hope he can put it back up, but I
Yeah,
hope he lets
yeah.
it out and beats some breaks off. I'm not saying that the kid can't fight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he'd whoop me for sure, but like you have no business stepping in the ring with the champ. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, if he's on a ventilator in a wheelchair, paralyzed, maybe.
Yeah,
But,
I don't know
the
if you
thought
saw
that
that.
you need to fight him.
I don't know if it was their weigh-in or whatever that they recently had.
Yeah.
Where, what's his name? Paul.
I can't remember if it's Logan or Jake. It's one of the two.
Logan Paul or Jake Paul was trying to intimidate Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's just grinning.
Well, the crap thing about this fight is if Mike Tyson wins, all he gets to say is, I told you, kid.
Mhm.
But if this Paul kid wins, he gets to go around saying, I beat Mike Tyson. And there's all kind of sanctions on this fight. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he gets to wear some sort of protective gear and a headgear. And this is what things I've read. It may not be true, but there's all kind of like, it's a money grab for
Yeah,
sure.
I get that.
It's a money grab. And people will tune in because they're like me and you. They want to see this Paul get demolished by Mike Tyson. But it's like, come on, Mike, have you really thought this through? Like, I feel like it's a Don King grab. Like Don King's like in the background saying, I'm taking all your money again because you have everything to lose if this kid knocks you out. On some fluke, he knocks you out. You got beat by a YouTuber. You know what I mean? And if you beat him, you've got nothing, but he's got everything to gain, Anyway, sorry, weird tangent there.
Yeah, so it is Jake Paul.
Jake Paul.
Yeah, and so just for age reference, Tyson's 57, Paul is 27.
Right.
So 30-year difference.
Yeah, 30-year difference. But have you watched any of Mike Tyson recently?
Oh,
Like
he's-
anything of him just sparring and like he hasn't
He's an
lost.
animal.
I mean, he's probably lost a step since he was
Oh,
25.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But
definitely.
like he's still a beast. Like
He still got that mentality.
yeah, and it's like if he
But-
ever lets it loose, can he get it back again? You know what I mean? That's what's scary.
Yeah, he'll
but
be all right.
Yeah.
If unless he gets beat, then there might be some
Yeah.
problems.
Well, either way, I'm watching it. You know what I mean? I'm watching it. Yeah. I hope he just either way. Anyway, I'll be quiet 'cause maybe I'll interview.
Well,
one of these
just
kids
a
one day.
little bit of stats here. So Tyson's been in 58 fights. He's won 50 out of the 58. He's only had 6 losses and 2 no contests. Jake Paul's been in 10 fights.
Yeah.
And he's won 9 out of 10.
Sure.
But I mean,
who has he fought?
right. I don't know. But that's crazy.
And I'm sure if you look up those 2 no contests and the 6 losses, Tyson, something was going on like he wasn't on his game. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like he could easily be undefeated. I heard somebody talking the other day about wanting to fight Butterbean, and it's like, why? Do you remember Butterbean ever coming into the man? He was a jerk. Like
Oh, I never had any personal contact with him.
he come in one day and he may be a super guy. You know what I mean? Forgive me for speaking out of turn about him, but he come in one day and he just tossed his keys on my desk and he said, "Wash that." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Wash that." I said, "I don't wash cars." He said, "You know who I am?" I said, "Not really. Don't really care. I don't wash cars. Wash bay's back there." And then here comes sales staff, managers like, "Hey, get his car back there." But either way, but it's like, I don't know that I thought Butterbean now. I mean, old buddy was pretty bad in the day. You know
So,
what I mean?
crazy thing. My uncle was actually one of his trainers.
Really?
Yeah, and so like my uncle and his whole family was like in one of the Sports Illustrated magazines
Yeah.
back then, back when Butterbean was pretty big. So
Yeah. Well, some young fighter now, and he's kind of gone down the road that this Paul guy, according to the interview I read, he's kind of gone down the same road. He's some sort of influence or something, but he talked about wanting to fight Butterbean, and I know Butterbean is aged, and from what I understand, his knees are bad, and
I don't think I could hit him enough times hard enough
yeah,
to knock him down.
yeah.
No.
I mean,
Before
just,
I ran out of gas.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
He's a big old guy.
He was a beast in the day, and he's still a big dude. You know what I mean? But not only that, like the professional mentality that he has, it's like, boy, you better be on your game. You better be on your game for sure. But anyway, sorry, we were talking about unleashing the beast, I guess, and having fun. So you feel like that hinders you from being able to have a good time still, or
What hinders me?
are you ever in fear that if you do get somewhere and you're having a good time that you may let it out? Like,
Oh, I'm not so worried about that at this point. I mean, I go to a lot of concerts. We have church in a bar.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, so
Um,
you're facing your demons head on.
yeah, I don't. I've experienced something in these last few years that has just given me a whole different view. Maybe the spiritual awakening they talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous,
Mhm.
which has been a very huge part of my spiritual growth. Um, I've had spiritual experiences, some that I didn't even recognize,
Mhm.
but an awakening is different, you know. My mindset has changed.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% better. I'm not 100% well, but I'm making progress every single
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. For me, like whenever I gave my heart to Christ, I was 18, 19 years old. Well, I was 8 years old. The typical go down to the altar and get saved, whatever, when you're a kid and you get baptized and all that stuff. Like Christ has always been a huge center in my life, but I gave my life to him at 18. You know what I mean? Like I was awakened, if that makes sense. And I'm not going to say that I haven't had trials and troubles along the way. I've even had times where I sat in my truck a few years ago crying my eyes out, "God, I'm done with you. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you." And I felt the Holy Spirit say, "Okay, well, when you're done throwing your fit, I'll be here." You know what I mean? And I think there's a huge difference in that. You know what I mean? And when you see him, and I fully expected to be struck by lightning, fall over dead. You know what I mean? But he was just there to comfort me. You know what I mean? When I was just going through something major in my life, and there's been times recently that, God, are you there? Are you listening? Why do I feel the way that I feel? I look at my life; it's great. I've got awesome kids. I've got a beautiful wife. She's great. We live in a nice house. We've got good jobs. Like, we're healthy. But yet I'm just not happy, and I just can't find peace. And I began to pray and seek God and ask God for things, and I realized I began to treat God kind of like a genie in the bottle,
Right.
grant my wish. And I think I'm not going to say he pulled back. I definitely pulled back, but he was standing there saying, "No, it's not wish granting time. It's growing time. It's time for you to understand how to stand on your own 2 feet and know that even though it may feel like you're in a storm and it may look like you're in a storm, I'm the one that controls the storm."
Yeah.
And it is very much an awakening, I guess, if that's a good term.
Well, I kind of, I started going to Pentecostal churches when I was, the summer before I got drunk.
Mhm.
And I don't say this I don't want to damage anybody, but I was going with a friend. It was early in the summer, I guess, and we had gotten new school clothes, so I don't know exactly when it was. It was summer, but I had my new school clothes on, nice pair of shorts, nice button-down shirt, and I had a guy approach me and say, "Hey, you don't need to come back here wearing shorts."
Yeah.
And I thought, what a dick,
Yeah.
like I'm in my best clothes.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go back. I didn't go back to church for a while.
And I think about how much has the church, the church, screwed people up. Same scenario. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and I love it. It's great. But I remember one scenario. I had this kid, literally the Wednesday. This was a Sunday. The Wednesday before, handed me a fistful of dope. You remember that?
Yeah, because I got pulled over that night.
Did you?
Yeah, you couldn't come help me because of things that
'Cause
happened.
I was dealing with that.
Yeah.
Did you have dope too, and I didn't know?
No,
Okay, all right, good.
no, not that time.
But I mean, kid literally handed me a fistful of pills, some marijuana, a pipe, and hey, man, I'm ready to give this up. So we pray, and he gives his heart to Christ. Well, he comes to church on Sunday and he walks in with a ball cap on. And one of our ushers, I love him. He's a great guy. Took his job very seriously. And he comes up to the kid and he's like, "Hey, man, you got to take that hat off." And the kid said, "I'm not taking it for what?" He said, "You can't come in here with that hat on." And he said, "Well, bro, I'm not taking my hat off and I'm going in." And this usher was like, "You are absolutely not going in wearing that hat." And the kid was ready to fight. And I just happened to be coming through and I heard it's getting loud and I kind of intervene and I tell the usher, I'm like, "Hey, he's good. He's with me." "Well, Pastor, don't." I said, "I'll deal with Pastor. If Pastor's got an issue, if anybody's got a problem with this, you tell him to come see me." So we went, he sat through service or whatever, fuming, boiling mad. I mean, so he received nothing that day.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the usher's fault. You know what I mean? He's just doing what he's been taught. He feels like it's disrespectful. We go through it at work all the time. We pray or whatever, take your hats off. And it's like, why? Why? That's a Southern thing. That's a tradition. God doesn't. Matter of fact, if you read the Bible, you should cover your head when you pray. You know what I mean? That's just if you want to get technical. But I got with the usher and pastor after service, and the usher was one of my good friends and still is. But I told him, I said, "Man, your arms are tatted up. You ride a bike. You're rough as a cob. But what do you do in the church? You're our head usher. What if somebody had shunned you for those tattoos?" I said, "Let me tell you about this kid." And I told him the story, and he was like, "Man, I didn't know. I just feel it's disrespectful." I said, I get it, man, but it's about our approach. It's how we approach things. We can't look at, and the church itself, in my opinion, has screwed things up being so legalistic. You know what I mean? God sees me. He doesn't see my tattoos. He doesn't see the way I'm dressed. And church, to me, is like a country club. I can go to this country club and they require me to wear a polo and slacks and golf shoes. Or I can go to this country club where they're like, "Hey, you can play in tennis shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt. I don't care." At the end of the day, what are we doing? We're playing freaking golf. You know what I mean? The objective's the same. It's just a matter of, I guess, the rules they put into place. But why do we put rules on church? Why do we put rules on? And I get it. I mean, you don't just want.
I think it's also the crowd you want to bring in too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hate to say it that way, but like sometimes you don't want the lowest of the low, even though
that's what
do,
Christ tells us. We say we do, but we don't.
Right.
One or two scattered out a little bit.
Yeah, but not a whole church full. Not a whole church full. You know what I mean? And I feel like I remember my mom telling me a story as a kid about how they couldn't hang out at Jack's, they couldn't go to the skating rink, any of these things because that's what whores do. And the whole time, my granddaddy, Sunday school superintendent, did his dirt. You know what I'm saying? And it's like there's so many people within the church that are doing their dirt, but they don't see their own dirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They see yours. Like, hey, Jonathan's a recovering alcoholic, so you got to watch him. He's a recovering addict. You got to watch him. All the while, Joe over here is in the car business, raking people over the coals for an extended warranty they don't need because it pays him an extra $500.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And they don't honor it either.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's useless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by the way, do not buy extended warranties, and you might buy gap insurance, but either way, it's a money racket. But that's the way it is.
Gap's an easy, if it if you need it, it's not that it's cheap.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead and
it'll
get
cover
that.
your car, but that extended warranty, like, man, you ain't gonna have no problems in the first 3.5 years, and then you're gonna trade it. It's just an extra money. It's a money
Yeah,
grab.
yeah.
But we don't see that as being wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As taking advantage of people. But we want to, and I've been guilty of it. You know what I mean? I had a cousin who passed away from an overdose, and the last conversation I had with him was, when you decide to change your life, you call me. Until then, I want nothing to do with you. Did he need to hear tough love? Absolutely. But on the flip side of that, could I have done more? Oh, 100%. And I regret it every day of my life. You know what I mean? He was like my brother. Now, I was sick of his crap, but he had a problem.
Yeah.
He had an issue. You know, the Bible talks about the woman with an issue of blood, and everybody shunned her. It never says that she was unrighteous. She had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
She had a problem, and people shunned her. But when she was ready to give it up, she found Jesus. Jesus completely transformed her in that awakening moment. And but how often was she shunned to the point of staying away from everybody? You know what I mean? Not wanting to be around anybody, not interacting with anybody. And we do that because, like the person that told me, "Do you think I want to be this way?" They don't want to be that way. They just don't know how to go to you and say, "Hey, man, I've got a problem." They're too busy trying to hide it because they know we're going to look down on them. You know, does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Anyway, but I think I think we as a whole, as the church, could do better, and I think the church is moving that direction. But we can't become so lax and lenient that we don't teach the truth. You know, we accept you as you are, but the Bible says this. We can't just say, "Yeah, you can come in here and never change," because then we're doing you a disservice. But at the same time, I don't think we just have to bash you over the head saying, do this, this is the right way. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think if we do a good job leading them to Jesus anytime, I mean, probably the most growth I've had in church, well, Micah Markham taught me a lot on a street level, like how to love people regardless. But getting into the Word and teaching Scripture and things like that, I had a couple of pastors I met later in life, and they were the type of guys that were like, "Hey, it's okay to go to AA, if you need it.
It's okay to struggle as a Christian."
But everything they taught from beginning to end led to Jesus. And let me say about Micah Markham, he probably helped save my life. Just because of,
He's a great dude.
yeah, just because I think he has a pure heart. And that, learning from him loving me regardless, taught me a lot.
Yeah.
He taught me how to minister to people that I come in contact with today.
Right.
But probably the greatest teacher I've ever had is Jeff Young. He's just released a book and stuff. But man, just sitting with him and just going over Scripture and really learning how to look at it, really learning how to back up and be open-minded and understand who was being addressed at that time, why they were being addressed, and how that can relate to us. That taught me a lot about the rigidness that I used to have as a Christian. Because even up until, gosh, probably 8 years ago, I still had a pretty rigid view of Scripture, and God's still working me out of that.
Sure.
But I was a lot like everybody else in the American church, the Western church.
Yeah.
I got saved. All of a sudden, boom, everything's supposed to be better.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
Yeah.
From the time I was
Same with me.
From the time I was a child. You get saved, everything changes. Well, I had to put on a front, I had to stop cussing. I had to stop act like I wasn't into girls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't want to screw every girl I ran into,
Right.
and you know, all that stuff. Put on a good image,
Yeah.
a good facade, and you can learn how to do that
Sure.
and function well in the church.
Yeah.
And I but I never did. I don't think I ever experienced. How can I put this? I think maybe I was kind of indoctrinated
Yeah.
through all
Yeah.
this. And
I fully agree with what you're saying there. I think, and not to cut you off, but like we have a very truncated view of who God is and who Jesus is, you know. Now, don't get me wrong and don't blast me in the comments for this, but God is 100% sovereign. He's 100% holy. Same with Jesus, you know, 100% no sin. You know, Jesus lived a perfect life from what we know. Um, but he was still a man. You know what I'm saying? And God knew that when he created him. You know, he sent him to earth to be tempted and tested in every single way, and Jesus wasn't. Therefore, he taught us that it's possible. But when we look at Christ's life, who did he hang around with? The term cuss like a sailor comes from sailors, and that's who he hung around with. He hung around with fishermen. If you were a fisherman or a carpenter in those days, it's because you either were past that by your father, it's generational. You just continue the family business, or you couldn't do anything else. You either had no skills or you were some sort of alcoholic. It was quick money. You gambled your money away, whatever, women, whatever your vice was. There was a reason why you did that. It wasn't because it was just, hey, I'm going to be a fisherman and that's a status quo job. It's not, you know. Um, but that's who Christ chose to hang with. You know, Mary Magdalene's a prostitute, and yet he sought her out. You know what I mean? Not to have his way with her, but to show people, to show us 2,000 plus years later that people are fallible and they have problems and they have issues, and he loves every single one of them. But yet we in the church have taught that, and I'm not saying whenever you come to Christ and you fully accept Christ, there is a radical change. You want to do better,
yeah,
but the struggles get harder.
yeah, yeah,
100% get harder. And I was the same way. I became very judgmental and, you know, well, so and so's got a porn addiction. You know, we need to pray for them. And then I go home and look at porn. You know what I mean? Like, what makes me any different? I remember there was a couple of kids that came through that were homosexual, and I was very judgmental. I tried to love on them, but my take was, hey, you know what you're doing's wrong, right? All the while, here I am married, looking at pornography. What's the difference? The
yeah,
sin is the sin, you know. And it's taken me 13 years now that I've been out of youth ministry to really wake up and realize that I wasn't as perfect as I thought I was, and I was very judgmental, and I needed to start seeing people for people. Now, is that an excuse to sin? Absolutely not. But I can love you and you be a sinner. I can be a friend to you and you be a sinner, and I can teach you the truth and you change. Or I can say I love you and say I'm your friend and bash you over the head and you never experience Jesus. And the church in a lot of ways has failed us. I don't think it's intentional. I think we're trying to teach holy living, but we're not as much teaching the love of Christ. Fast forward though, you see the flip side of that where we just accept everything now, you know, and sweep it under the rug. It's like there's got to be that balance. I can fully hang around you and you be a sinner and be engulfed in it, and hopefully rub off on you and you not rub off on me. That's the problem, is not getting brought down that path. But I can fully hang around you and show you the love of Christ and show you scripture and you change. Or I can fully hang around you and bash you over the head and I'm going to push you away. You know,
Yeah.
the key is to not get wrapped up and go your way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But accept you right where you are.
Yeah,
Does
what
that
they
make
say,
sense?
you hang around garbage long enough, you start smelling like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean,
I
you
get that.
definitely don't want
It's
to
hard.
become that way, but I think the church takes a stance of, oh no, I can't get dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely not what Jesus would do. I fully believe that if Jesus walked the earth today, he might go to church, but he'd have been, you know, the streets of Southside last night talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
loving on people. And maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you take the thief on the cross. I mean, he's hanging there between two guys that was doing dirt with Barabbas, and he tells one of them, "Today you'll be with me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not mad because he's hanging there for their sin or for their crime. He said, "Hey, I'm with you." You know what I mean? If you want to be with me, great. If you don't, the other one didn't. Okay, bro, you're lost. You know. But if you want to, I love you, and I know what you've been through, but I'll still forgive you. You know. And I just feel like we fail
Well,
as ministers. You know.
yeah, I think for me, one thing I've learned is I have a purpose individually,
Yeah.
but I also have purpose collectively.
Yeah.
And if my personal relationship with Christ is where it needs to be, I'm gonna be doing what I need to be doing collectively. Right. I'm gonna be reaching the people I need to reach individually, planting the seeds I need to plant. I don't believe that, I believe it takes, well, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a community to raise a person up in Christ.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may have like personal mentors or disciplers, whatever, that are teaching you individually, deep diving with you and things like that. But when you go out on your own, you've got to show that you've got to fulfill your purpose.
You got to be able to stand
individually.
Yeah, you got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and deliver that.
And so, how I choose to accept another person, or how I choose to relate to that person, is individual.
Yeah,
that's between me, the Holy Spirit, and that person.
Right.
And I think in some cases you have to be more accepting, even though you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And that comes from experience for me too, because as crazy and wild and insane as I was, I had people that gently carried me.
Yeah.
They didn't preach to me.
Yeah.
They didn't try to save me in a day.
Right.
They just gently led me towards Jesus.
So you'd say they showed you the love of Christ.
Yeah, just gently lead them to Jesus.
Well, I know there's an urgency for salvation because we're not promised the next breath. There's an urgency for that. But I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe if you've got that person on the hook, they're believing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't feel like there's a need to pressure you at that point. If they are genuinely interested, then their thought process is there is a God. There is Jesus Christ. And at that point, I don't have to do anything but let Jesus do his work. Let the Holy Spirit work. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like I sit back and be lazy, but like I can just have a relationship with that person. You know what I mean? And it's not about thumping that Bible. It's about living my life and letting them see me live my life. And then they're going to start asking questions.
Yeah,
they're going to be drawn more to it.
The consistency is huge.
Yes. And that I feel like that's where we miss it in the church, is the consistency. And I get a church service is an hour. You know what I mean? And you don't have that time. That's where I feel like small groups and things like that are great. We have I went through a thing called emotional healthy spirituality at church, and I was struggling, and my pastor called, "Hey man, I want you to be a part of this group." There's 6 of us sitting around, and about the 3rd or 4th session, the guy says, "Who is it in you that needs to die? There's a part of you that needs to die." Well, for me, that was Pastor Wes. You know what I mean? I needed to let that side of my life go and just be Wes, just be who God created, not the facade that I created in the image of God. You know what I mean? Or I created to promote the image of God, I guess is what I should say. And so in that, you begin to share your deepest, darkest, whatever. And I was pretty nervous. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to share this because y'all are going to think a lot differently about me. I've been in ministry for 20 years, and if I share some of the stuff that I've been through, and I'm a pretty open book, but if I share some of this, you guys are going to think, So I did. I spilled my guts, and the guy next to me was like, "Is that it?" And then he shared, and I'm like, bro, I wouldn't have told nobody that. And the guy next to him was like, well, hang on. And he shared. And it got all the way around to my pastor. And I was like, Joey, I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way I would have ever told anybody that, you know. But there was the confidence of it staying in that circle. It's not leaving. And there's no judgment. And the thing that I feel like Satan does to us is he gets in our ear and says, hey, your sin is so great that everybody's going to look at you differently. They're going to shun you. They're going to push you aside. They'll never view you the same. But if everybody's honest, we're all jacked up. You know what I mean? And I got a phone call from a friend that goes to church the other day, and I've been, like I say, struggling, and we got to talking, and he just spilled his guts, and I spilled mine, and he said, man, we need more of this. I said, 100% we do. We all need to know that we can share our deepest, darkest thoughts and secrets, and it stay with somebody, because that's healing. There's the Bible tells us to confess our sins with our mouth, but we need to be able to do it in a way that there's no judgment. You know what I mean? Like, your sin's no greater than mine. I'm maybe a little shocked by it, but okay. I'm sure what I'm about to say is going to be more shocking than that. And 9 out of 10 times it is. But I feel like the church doesn't teach that. You know what I mean? It teaches we teach holiness as perfection and not as what it is. You know what I mean? Holiness is living. It's not, you'll never be perfect.
Holy is being set apart.
Yeah.
Set apart
You're
doesn't
different.
I mean, doesn't make you perfect.
Right. And I feel like that's where the church has failed us for so many years. I feel like it's getting better, because there's a lot of churches out there that are just open to people now. You know what I mean? We want you to come, but how do you begin to teach? Because we want you here doesn't mean that you can continually live in your sinful lifestyle. How do you teach that in a way to make people understand that, hey, you're going to continually sin, but there's grace and there's forgiveness. Just come to Jesus. You know what I mean? You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to live like the devil. I'm not saying that, and you get into the hot or cold, be hot or cold, but I think that means being honest. If I'm being honest that I have struggles, but I'm still continually finding myself at the feet of Jesus, that's where the change comes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And not just either pushing people aside or just accepting them and, hey, keep living sinful if you want to. You know what I mean? Anyway, sin's a weird subject, but.
Well, I mean, a lot of that, I guess in 2015 when I decided to get serious, AA had been suggested to me for many years. This has been going on for a while, and I'd go and I'd be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
These guys are sitting around talking about their problems. But
it's depressing. I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, because it wasn't for them. It was for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the right mindset. I didn't have the right perspective. And it went on, and I finally met Mike Adams, my sponsor, in 2015, and started taking it serious. And that changed the way I saw everything spiritually. It, I had so many Christians tell me, you can't say you're an alcoholic. Why do you say you're an alcoholic?
Yeah, Jesus changed you. Why do you say that?
Yeah, because, the only way I'm going to find out if I'm not is if I drink again.
Yeah.
So, and if by me saying that helps me heal, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
And, I learned that was okay. And I probably, in the last 8 years, since being a part of a 12-step program, have gotten closer to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
My sponsor led me closer to Jesus. It's not a religious program. It's not, but it is. The foundation was started by a Christian group, the Oxford group, and then it went on from there. But they don't push religion on you.
Yeah.
But the more my sponsor got to know me and know that I was hungry for Jesus, that's really what I wanted, he started leading me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Through AA.
Yeah.
And I'm not special.
Right.
That happens for a lot of people.
Right.
But you know, my goal was to stay sober, don't drink again. That was my goal. And if I have to go to meetings and be a part of meetings, if I have to call a sponsor, if I have to do this, if I have to do that, if that is my spiritual contact, that's where two people are more powerful than one.
Yep.
And I knew I needed something more powerful than me because I couldn't do anything but mess it up.
Right.
And so I had to find something more powerful than me.
Yeah.
And I learned that can be the three of us right here. That's a power greater than myself.
Mm-hmm.
Me reading the Bible is a power greater than myself. And so that's really what started leading me into a more spiritual life. Was through the rooms of AA.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. Like, I felt God calling me to do this 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm pissing and moaning because I don't have a platform to minister on. I don't have a pulpit, whatever. And the Lord said, "You got social media, right?" And, it's like it's used enough for bad. Why don't you do something for good? Well, of course, I hem haul around. That's just me. You know what I mean? Like, God, are you sure? Whatever. And I began to talk to Chris about it, and everybody's like, "Well, what's it about?" It's like, I don't know. It's not about anything. It's about us just talking. You know what I mean? And struggled with a name and all this stuff. And that's how I came up with Among the Ashes out of Joel chapter 2. It says that, or Job chapter 2, it says he sat in his ash heap scraping his boils. And his wife comes to him and says, "Won't you just curse God and die?" And his friends come to him and say, "You've obviously pissed God off. It's your fault." None of them said, "Hey man, let me sit down beside you and just get dirty. We ain't got to say nothing. We ain't got to talk. If you want to talk, I'll listen. If you want to hear my response, I'll give it. But if not, I'm going to sit here with you until you rise up out of it." And if we were more willing to do that, we could see change. And I was sharing with Scott yesterday. It says that Job petitioned God 38 times before God responded. And Job was perfect, according to what Scripture says. He done everything right. He's atoning for everybody's sins, and he's praying the way he's supposed to do, and all this stuff. And it took him petitioning God 38 times to get a response out of God. Now, what he didn't see was everything going on in the background, where Satan comes and says, "Hey, let me tempt Job," and God's like, "Yeah, you can tempt him. Good luck," But God's response to him in chapter 38, and I'm paraphrasing, but said, "Where were you when I created this? When I created the heavens and the earth? Where were you when I made you? Up until this point, you've had nothing to do with nothing. Sit back, shut up, let me do my job. I got you." And that's the thing we fail to realize, is that God has got us no matter what. Even if we are living sinful, Jesus has got us if we just trust him, and maybe we should be more open to living like Christ and accepting people for who they are instead of trying to change them.
Yeah.
We're never going to change anybody, but Jesus 100% will, and so that's kind of my take on AA there. It's like, hey, you come and get what you want out of it, share when you want to share it, and when you're ready, you'll get some change if you keep putting in the effort.
Yeah, there's a saying, take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I've never been to a meeting where I didn't get something I needed. Now, maybe it wasn't a lot, in an hour, but somebody sharing, always has an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least at some point.
Sure.
But that was the one thing about AA that I really started to fall in love with, was that a person who's truly actively a recovering AA, they care about you.
Yeah.
100%. They do. It's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to tell you no.
Yeah.
They know how to talk to you like you need to be talked to.
Yeah.
I mean, they know.
It's not one of those, and I'm guilty of it. I'm praying for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And then I never pray for you. They're legit.
And you may not ever hear I'm praying for you.
But they're legit in your life.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's something that I learned. That's a picture of Jesus, man. And I think we get this distorted view, and which I had it, Jesus as being, this gentle, and he was gentle,
Sure.
very gentle when he needed to be. But he was complex.
Yeah.
He wasn't just, tiptoeing around. I mean, he flipped over the table.
Well, there's a reason why he spoke in parables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because some people get it, some people won't. And the ones who won't, then I can just talk to them plainly. You know what I mean? And we distort that.
And we try to, we try to, I think we kind of muzzle who Jesus really was.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a lot more hardcore than we want to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a rule breaker.
Yeah.
He broke everything, all the laws that
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
had going on at the time.
Absolutely.
Like he didn't look like what the model that we present.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't look like the Messiah of that day for sure.
But we try to, I think what happens is we try to lead people to Jesus and then try to change the way they dress, try
Yeah.
to change the way they talk. I mean, we just try to change all this stuff. And all Jesus was wanting was the heart change.
Yeah.
That was anything he ever did. It was about the heart.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anybody to go change their appearance.
Right. And it's very much still that way. Like, you don't have to accept Christ, you don't have to be any different. You'll want to be different. And you'll start making subtle changes in your life because you begin to think about, I guess, for lack of better terms, letting him down.
Well, here's the thing. We are different.
Yeah.
We're all different. Hold on a second.
Take your time.
Repeat what you said, because I got sidetracked.
I said, when we come to Jesus, we're expecting to be radically changed in that moment. But the more we grow closer to him, the more we change individually.
Right. So
It's not just something that we are automatically different. And I think that's where people fall off, because they think I'm changed. They are. They just don't realize it, and they think that all this garbage that they're bringing with them has to be swept away and gone in that moment. But that's not the case. You are radically changed, but you still have the baggage. It's up to you to stop picking it up, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so we are individuals. We all have an individual personal relationship with God,
Right.
with Christ. If we believe that in our hearts, there will be things that change,
Yes.
but not what we expect
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
God hasn't delivered me from cussing because I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
I think we should be careful in certain applications.
Sure.
I think we should be careful with certain audiences
Sure.
and things like that. But some of the people I've reached, I've had to cuss them out,
Yeah.
and vice versa. The things my dad said to me in 2015 that catapulted me in a different direction weren't nice.
Right.
But that was Jesus coming out of him.
Right. I fully believe that. I've told people, and it blows some people's minds, I believe heroin addicts will make it to heaven that are active heroin addicts.
Absolutely.
Well, how's that the case? Because they have a problem. Well, Jesus can deliver them. Absolutely, Jesus can. But if they're not ready, it doesn't mean that they haven't surrendered their heart and mind to Jesus. They still have a physical body that they're having to deal with. So instead of putting them down because they're an addict, why are we not trying to help them move to a better way of thinking?
They've met Jesus.
Yes, 100%.
They've met him in their life.
100%, or they wouldn't still be living, or functioning every day, making it, And it goes back to the old saying. My buddy said, "Do you think I want to be this way?" Absolutely not. But I feel that Jesus meets us in those moments, and he's not that he's okay with our sin, but he's okay with us being human beings and having problems. And he's not a process God, but we're a process people. Does that make sense? Like we have to do things in steps. Um, I don't know of anybody who has um, ever gotten saved, given their life to Christ, being a heroin addict or whatever, that didn't go through some sort of withdrawals or DTs or whatever. I'm not saying God can't take that away from them immediately. I fully believe He can. But I also think that He allows that process so you remember, hey, I don't want to go back there. But in that process, I think there's times where they're like, well, if I just had a little bit, it's going to stop. And then I can function today. The problem with addicts is tomorrow never comes. I'll quit tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes because it's a stronghold in your life. And I'm not saying that God and Christ is not strong enough to take that away from you in that moment, but I think that God leaves that there so you remember. You know what I mean? And it is if He always does, it's just like my kids. If I always do for them, they'll never do for themselves. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't fully rely on God for everything. We should, but some of it we just have to do ourselves. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like some things we just have to do ourselves. We have to be willing to let go and give up. If my marriage is failing, that's my fault. It's not God's. I have to sit down and communicate with my wife. You know what I mean? If my job's going bad, I have to look at myself and say, is it something I've done? Am I screwing up? Am I doing something wrong? And if so, pray about it, ask God for direction, and fix it. Not just say, "Here's my wish, God." Fix it, make it better. And I've heard multiple people say, I asked God for this or asked God for that, and heard God say, "I didn't put you in it, but I'll walk with you. I'll walk you through it." And I think that's learning purpose for us. We're learning creatures. That's how we've got to where we are here in 2024, is by learning and growing. If God just gives us everything, there's no change there. You're not going to change if He just fixes it right then. But the flip side of that is He really does fix it right then, because there is a change in you because you're striving to do something different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think an issue with the church in general is that we teach people that it's about them.
Yeah.
And in a way it is about getting yourself better, becoming whole, asking God for what you need, but it's all to give back.
Yeah.
Every bit of it. The only reason we're made better is to make somebody else better.
Exactly.
It's not about how much can I get.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how much I can give.
Mm-hmm.
And through giving, I continue to receive.
Right. I told the guy we interviewed yesterday, I said, if I've never walked where you've walked, the best I can be is sympathetic or empathetic. But if I've walked it, I can show you how to get out of it, or at least tell you, this is what I did, and this is what worked for me, so try that. And that's the full picture to me of Christ. Is it's not about just gaining Him and keeping Him for yourself. It is giving it 100% back. You're just like marriage. I tell people when I marry them, marriage is not 50-50. It's 100-100. You give 100% and you take 100%. You're going to, you just got to be willing to accept that and know that in the times that I'm giving, she's probably taking. And in the times that I'm taking, she's probably giving. And I think it's the same thing with our relationship with Christ. He constantly gives. All we do is constantly take. We've got to start giving. We've got to, or it's not going to work. It's you're wasting your time.
Well, you're going to be chasing that, chasing an empty dream.
Yeah.
And that's whatever that is to you.
Yeah.
Money, women, sex.
Yeah.
Sports, whatever. Typically, it's money. But, that gets Christians hemmed up.
Yeah.
But amongst other things, but the church teaches prosperity and things like that. I get it. I get where.
Sure, God wants us to be prosperous.
I get where that comes from.
But He also wants us to work hard.
Well, and also I think his definition and ours is different too when it comes to prosperity.
I told somebody the other day, we were talking about and I'm gonna get blasted for this, but talking about homosexuals, and somebody saying, "Well, love is love." Well, love is not love. If you look up the word love, when Jesus goes before and He's talking to John, and He looks at John, He says, "Do you love me?" And John says, yeah, I love you. He says, no, but do you love me? Well, yeah, God, I love you. And then finally he says, but do you love me? John finally got what he was saying. It's agape. So John responded, yeah, I love you. You're my buddy. Then he responded, well, yeah, I love you. You know, you're my brother. And then it's finally, no, I'm in love with you. I would give my life for you. Love is not love. God's love is not what we think it is. It's not roses and rainbows and happy. I
It's
love my children because I discipline my children. I love my children because I give to my children. You know what I mean? It's not God's prosperity is not him just giving us what we want. God's prosperity is us working hard for it and helping others. Therefore you're prosperous. You know what I mean? It's not about fame. It's not about riches.
it's
You
your
know,
soul. It's about
yeah,
your soul.
yeah. You're gaining everything by doing what you're doing. You can have your riches here if you want it here, but you're going to miss out on so much later, you know. And there again, I feel like we're bashing on the church. I'm not trying to bash the
Yeah, and
church.
I definitely don't want to do that because, I mean, this brings up something. A few years ago, I started praying, asking God to show me where I've met Jesus in my life, throughout my life, from the time I was small. You show me, and I'm telling you, man, He starts showing me people all throughout my life in churches that I don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
I met Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a big mega church fan, but there's people in those mega churches that are being Jesus.
Yeah.
People are meeting Jesus there.
Yeah.
They may be getting some mixed up stuff going on, but they're meeting Jesus. And so I mean, and now then I pray, God, let me recognize Jesus every day.
Yeah.
Show me Jesus through somebody, because that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
We are his agents,
Right.
you know, and his ambassadors.
I 100% agree with that. I know Joel Osteen did an interview with Oprah Winfrey one time, and he got bashed for it because she said, do you believe that there's only one way to God? And he said, no, I think there's many ways to God. If you go on and listen to the full interview, he'll talk about what I'm about to say. The way they made it explain, or the way they tried to make it sound, was that he was saying there's many ways to God. Jesus isn't the only way. There's many ways to Jesus. Jesus is the only way to God. I may find Jesus through alcoholism. You know, I may find Jesus through a porn addiction. I may find Jesus through my mom because she witnessed to me, or my grandmother. There's so many avenues to Jesus, and they're not always pretty, you know. But we think that it's got to be a certain way in a certain box. And Jesus will definitely present himself to you through people or whatever else. Whatever he's got to do to get your attention, he will 100% do that. And it may be in your deepest, darkest moment that you find him. You know, you experience him in some sort of way. You know,
Yeah.
It may be that drug dealer that you bought drugs from forever, who gave his life to Christ and gives it up, and you go to get him the next time, and he's like, well, hey man, I turned my life around. You know what I mean? But yeah, how'd you find him? Through getting high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that you know, that just reminds me of what my dad said to me in 2015. My dad's never been really religious or anything like that. You know, he talked about the Bible a little bit when we were younger and stuff, but he's just never really been into it, you know, on a religious level.
Mm-hmm.
But I was making plans to take my life. I was just waiting on some money to go on my pay card so I could order some pills online.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed a divine intervention because I was going through with it. That was my goal. And the night before I got paid, my dad came to me and told me what he said. He said, you can do yourself in, but you're not doing it here. Or you can get help and I'll take you.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning I went and got help.
Yeah.
And that was a divine intervention, defining moment in my life. That propelled me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was Jesus to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it may have seemed harsh.
But I didn't recognize it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just thought, dang, man,
That's tough. I'm
that's
your
tough
kid.
to hear from your own dad,
Yeah.
And but then as I started growing, and then I started seeking out, those experiences. I
Mhm.
want to remember those experiences in my life, and then I want to continue to experience those things in my life. That's when I started to realize, you know what? He was being Jesus to me in that moment.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
Now, anybody else that would have saw that probably would have thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
But I believe Jesus was working through my
Yeah.
dad that
God
day.
knew exactly what you needed in that moment, what you needed to hear in that moment, and whether it was harsh or not.
If
you
my
need
dad
it.
would have said, you need to get your life right with Jesus, that wouldn't have worked.
You wouldn't be here today.
Even though it was my dad saying it,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have worked.
Right.
What he did worked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was from the depths of his heart.
Right. And I think that's where we fall short sometimes is we become so heavenly minded we're no earthly good. We got to package it right. And if it's not packaged right, then we don't want to receive it or we don't want to give it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not bashing the church by any means here. I don't mean it that way, but me personally, for me in my walk, is I feel like, that maybe had I not, I'm trying to word it the right way, had I not experienced the things the way that I experienced it and went down the path that I went down, that maybe I wouldn't have experienced the heartache that I've had now. But on the flip side of that, had I not gone through all of that, I wouldn't know how to reach people now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
That's a wrap. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. If you enjoyed that episode, please go and check out part 2. It should be available now. If you're watching us on YouTube and you like what you heard and want more content from us, please subscribe, hit that like button, and leave us a comment. If you're listening on Spotify or some other podcast platform, please hit that join and follow button and leave us a comment. It really does matter. It helps us and everyone involved who has been on the show to get their story out there, and that's what it's about. If you'd like to be a part of the show or have an idea of something you would like us to discuss or talk about, leave us a comment or shoot us an email at amongtheashes@yahoo.com. Thanks again for checking us out. Remember, Jesus loves you and so do we. Keep your head up.